Well, I'll just.
Hold on. Oh, nope, it ain't nothing I can do about that. It is.
Hello, happy Friday to ya. Happy Friday to ya. Happy Friday, happy Friday to ya. Happy Friday, happy Friday. Hello, hello. Welcome to Free Yourself Friday. This is the space. Welcome to Happy Hour, the space where truth meets transformation. I am your host, your beloved Rochelle D. Jacobs, your destiny interventionist, and I am here today. We are going to be tackling a tough but oh so necessary conversation. Listen, my beloved, whoever is listening tonight, have you ever felt like a relationship was slowly, like slowly, like that maple syrup slowly pouring down, slowly draining the life out of you? Or maybe it was the constant criticism or the manipulation or the way the person made you feel this small every time you were around them or you are around them. That's not love. You know, the song, What's Love Got to Do with It? That's not love. That's not the love that God came and sent his son to die for us. That's not the love. And so that is toxicity. That is toxic. And so tonight, my beloveds, whoever is watching on the line, you deserve better. This Friday, this Free Yourself, we're going to try to help you free yourself. Remember, I am your destiny interventionist, helping you try to free yourself about how to spot the signs, break the cycle, and beloved, to walk boldly into freedom. Listen, I never knew the weight until I felt the freedom. We're going to talk a little bit about that later on. But I want you to just sit back. I hope you got your popcorn. I know it's Friday night. For some of us, you know, it's football, you know, high school football, college football. We got homecoming coming up. We got so many things happening in the city of Houston, Texas. But listen, this is a necessary topic. Remember, this is October, the month where we October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And so we want to get this information out. We want to share this information with as many people as possible. And so before we dive into it, I need you to do me a little favor. You see that little button that says subscribe? Please hit that button, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Also, share, like it, and share this with somebody. If you are coming back to see this later on, make sure you put in the comments hashtag replay. All right, so we're gonna tonight. We have a guest. We have the beloved Beverly Hutchins, and she is the author of the book Triumphant Over Toxic Relationships. And listen, I first met this author at in my book club. I am a member of the Houston Texans book club here in Houston, Texas, led by the lovely Adina Jenkins. And so when we were reading this book, I was like, ooh, child, I wish I would have had this book pre-COVID. Because I tell everybody all the time, whoever listens to me, whenever the conversation comes up, I am so thankful for COVID. I'm going to say that again. I am so thankful for COVID, because in COVID, that was a time for me to realize that, hey, I was in a toxic relationship with myself. Yes, I was in a toxic relationship with myself. I was, you know, when we think about what did I do with my definition of toxic? When we think about, you know, toxic relationships, you know, we think about things that are negative. We think about the belittle, when people belittle you, and you feel trapped, you feel drained, you have no courage. Um, it can be, for me, it was how I treated myself, how I allow others to treat me, having no boundaries. And so when we were reading this book, it was this year, I believe, when we read this book in the group, and I felt so good because I was on the other side of it. And so we're going to talk about all of that. And so I'm going to introduce her. I'm going to bring her onto the stage, and she is going to introduce herself and share a little bit about who she is and why she wrote this book. Now I'm going to put in the chat because I want you to make sure that you are sharing this information, and go out and buy her book if you don't already if you haven't already gotten the book. It's on Amazon, and so we want to make sure that you have that opportunity to do that. So coming to the stage, Miss Beverly Hutchings. Come on in the room, girl. Let me unmute you. Take it away.
Hello, everyone. Happy Friday, or happy Friday is what we're doing. Remember the yay, it's Friday. So we just flip it around and say happy Friday. But yes, my name's Beverly Hutchings. I am the daughter of Wayburn and Winnie Dean. I was raised in Hobbs, New Mexico. A little bit about my background. I am married to Gregory Hutchings. We've been married 46 years, soon to be 47. And just next week, we'll be married 47 years. We have 4 children, and they are very zealous and doing their own thing in their lives. We have 9 grandchildren. And a little bit about the book is I wrote the book because my family has been plagued for generations with toxic relationships. And when I say generations, it's going all the way back to my great-grandfathers, great-grandmothers being abused. And it's cyclic. And I wanted to break this cycle. I wanted to share what I have experienced and what I've learned and what I've actually seen and witnessed with others, so that they can also break the cycle if they have been involved or are involved in a toxic relationship. Tonight, I want us to get real. I want us to get serious, and I want us to really evaluate where we are. This is not an easy topic. It is not one that people will just walk away from. But with due time, with digging deep within self and learning who you are, this can be conquered. So I just want to say thank you for having me tonight, Rochelle. This is a real blessing, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
All right. Okay, let's see. Okay, here we go. All right, so let's just get it on, just dive on into the conversation. And so thank you, Beverly, for your introduction. And again, I'm just so grateful that I got a chance to read your book and to have the conversation, because it is a very difficult conversation. And a lot of times, you mentioned it's been in your family for generations because we don't talk about it. We hold it in, we sweep things under the rug, and we walk around. I like to have my little props with the mask on. It's a cute mask. And so, and that's what I did. For so long, I walked around with the mask on, pretending that everything was okay. When everything wasn't. And so, there's an author, Deborah Filita, I think I'm pronouncing her name right. And she wrote a book called It's Okay to Not Be Okay. And so just, being in that space to be vulnerable, and to recognize that, hey, I am in a toxic relationship. And for me, like I said, it was with myself. It wasn't necessarily with another person. But well, now that I think about it, it was. It was with family members, it was with friends, it was with other people, because how they say hurt people hurt people. And let me just uh, throw this in here now. You and I, let's put out the disclaimer. We are not doctors. We are not psychiatrists. We're not therapists. We're not, licensed professionals. But life be life, and we have the experience. We have the wisdom. We have, we've gone to the school of hard knocks to talk about this, to have this conversation, to talk about these things, because like you said, we've lived through it. It was up close and personal for us. And so, I always like to start with, okay, let me give the definition of a toxic relationship. It is a relationship, either romantic, familiar, friendship, or professional, that consistently harms your well-being rather than support it. Those energy, the thing that sucks the energy out of you, that drains you, be it, when you have a conversation, I'm sure you've met people, if you've had, people kind of come into your space, and when you leave, you just feel drained. You feel depleted. You feel like, oh my God, you and me, I'm a positive, upbeat person, and it's like, you're in a toxic relationship. Thinking about signs when you feel, depleted. So for you, Beverly, what did that look like? Dealing with your family. Kind of, how did being in a toxic relationship, or being exposed to toxic relationship, how did that look for you?
Well, it was very difficult. I've had toxic relationships in all forms, with my family, with friends, and how they have just kind of manipulated me to basically bow down to their will versus my will. And I am a pretty tough person, and I can stand up for myself. But I also have a side of me that's a Christian,
Right.
and I want to get along with people, and I'll do everything that I can to get along with you. But I didn't have the courage to stand up, or the courage to say, "Hey, these relationships are toxic.
Right.
These relationships are not helping me. They bring a deep bad feeling in my stomach, like puts a pit in my stomach when I'm around these people." And because I don't know what's going to happen, I don't know what's going to be said, I don't know if there's going to be volatility. And I am not a volatile person.
Right.
I don't like that, and it's very difficult. So that's how I basically have just learned through trial and error how to escape. That's the word.
Right.
Toxic relationships.
To break free. Yeah.
To break free.
Free, like I said, this is Free Yourself Friday. And so again, I want to thank you for sponsoring this particular episode, because again, it's a difficult conversation. But if you want to live that abundant life, you mentioned you're a Christian, and so that's why he came. That's why Christ died for us, so we can have that abundant life. Not that we can continue in sin, not that we can continue in bondage, being oppressed and living in this, in the that generational, those curses, going in that loop, on that merry-go-round, constantly round and around. And you and I talked earlier today, trying to understand, a lot of times why we stay in these relationships, why we find ourselves, why we don't want to break free. And so sometimes it's just gonna take, you getting to the point of being sick and tired of being sick and tired, you know, uh, realizing that nothing is changing because, listen, nothing is changing. And so, just having the courage and the resilience and the perseverance to just really, being able to first identify, hey, this ain't right. Like you said, having that feeling in the pit of your stomach, something ain't right. This ain't right. You know how, when you were kids and your parents talked to you about stranger danger. And so, that something ain't right. Something makes you uncomfortable. And so, and then having the courage to break through. So, I love a good old acronym. And so I came up with the acronym for toxic. And so the T, truth. And so, we got to be truthful. When you and I talked, it's about being vulnerable. It's about admitting, say, hey, I'm in a toxic relationship, be it with family, with friends, with myself, with coworkers, my neighbor, even your pet. I don't have a pet, but I'm sure when people are, when people are hurting, when they don't love themselves, when they don't have any boundaries, when they don't, when there's no joy, they take it out on people. That's why we have road rage. That's just, we see it in everything. Just today, I was watching the news, and a woman, well, I don't know if it was a woman or a man. I couldn't really see, but a driver was trying to go around the school crossing guard. While he's trying to get the kids and the parents safely across the street. And it's like, wow, it's just amazing, the level of where people are in their mental, in their physical, in their emotional, and how they handle relationships. And so just, being able to they say, the Bible say, the truth will set you free. And I said it earlier, I never knew the weight until I felt the freedom. For me, it looked like, like you say, having that pit thing in your stomach, that feeling, that unease. And then, sometimes that unease turns into what? You're a nurse, so it turns into what? Disease.
It turns into disease, yes.
And so, how...
And the disease might be anxiety.
Yeah.
The disease might be depression.
Come on. Yeah.
The disease might be that you're volatile.
Yeah.
And eventually, I believe these toxic relationships, you just cannot stay in them and it doesn't rub off on you.
Right.
And
exactly.
So we got to remember what God says about that, which means he expects us to live peaceable among all men.
Right.
At all times,
right.
And that we put on the Beatitudes that he's given us.
Right.
So,
and develop the fruit of the Spirit as well.
And develop the fruits of the Spirit. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult to do that if you're in a toxic relationship, because volatility creates volatility.
Oh, yes. And nothing will grow.
Right. Nothing grows, nothing flourishes.
Yeah.
And you're just and if children are involved, it's even worse.
Oh, yes.
Staying in these relationships. I've seen people who have stayed in these toxic relationships, and their children, they grow up very unstable, low self-esteem, low self-worth. They even take on the traits, some of them, of being a toxic person.
Oh, yeah. So like you say, that's that generational cycle that continues because, like you say, that learned behavior.
Correct. That learned behavior is very, very, I mean, some kids escape it. because there are some people that say, look at their home life and they say, I don't want to be anything like this, and I'm not going to. But then there's some that are not strong enough, and they fall right into that mold, and the cycle continues over and over
Over.
and over again. It's so hurtful to see somebody who don't have the courage to stand up for who they are and for what God made them to be.
Right. There's a poem, uh, as an educator, a lot of times when I would go to, different professional developments, they would always read this poem by Dorothy Law Note, I believe that's her name. And, some of it is, if children live with criticism, they learn to condemn.
Mm-hmm.
When they live with hostility, they learn to fight. When they live with pity, they learn to feel sorry for themselves. When they live with fear, they learn to be apprehensive. When they live with tolerance, they learn patience. When they live with shame, they learn to feel guilty. And so, all of these things, as mothers, as daughters, as sisters, as daughters of the King, as children of God, as leaders, as nurses and healthcare professionals, teachers, we're modeling for our children, this thing. And so if, like you say, if this is something that they see, it's so easily to fall victim to that. And so I know for me, I grew up in seeing the toxic relationship between my mom and my stepfather, my mom and her boyfriend. And so, and that was part of why I didn't know how to love myself. And that was part of why, I became a people pleaser, and like, you mentioned, how as Christians, we're to live peaceably with people, but at what cost? And in your book, you talked about, there's different boundaries. And
Yes.
so for me, I had to learn how to set boundaries, because because what I was doing was I was teaching people, men, women, whomever, how to treat me, because I accepted. So, I had that low self-esteem. I didn't have confidence in myself. I just, everything was okay, because I needed that I had that fear of abandonment, that fear of shame, and all of those things that I talk about in my book, Unleashed. And so, destiny. And so, gotta get gotta get these 2 words, unleash destiny. And so, just making sure that, again, we're modeling what it looks like to really love yourself, to take care of yourself, to have confidence in yourself. And so that brings us to the O in toxic. And so, once we're able to identify what it looks like, what exactly is toxic, and understanding the truth of it, the truth behind the matter, the truth behind, why I feel a certain way, why I'm comfortable, why am I unhappy, why am I feeling the way I'm, feeling, then we have to own it. And that's what I had to do. I had to own
Yes.
the truth of being in a toxic relationship with myself and with other people's. And so owning it, as well as creating the boundaries, and owning my own self-worth. I am worthy. I see Miss Tina Lewis is on the on with us tonight, and I had her on a couple of weeks ago about free yourself to total deliverance. She lived through domestic violence, and she's an advocate of domestic violence, and being able to, she calls those that come in her space BMWs, beautiful, marvelous, worthy, because that's what we are. And so, when you have people that are pouring into, have you seen the commercial or the graphics on social media, where I think it's a shadow, of a baby.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're saying, if you're pouring in all of this negativity, or you're pouring in hate, and you're pouring in, all of this, these things that don't allow us to grow, that is what's gonna get into them in their spirits. And so it's so important that we get into a space of just really owning our
Yes.
truth. And
And
so,
also,
go ahead.
we I think the first step towards healing or towards is to recognize. You need to recognize these people and know who they are, know their the signs and symptoms of a
Oh yeah.
toxic person.
Mm-hmm.
And the signs and symptoms are things like being manipulative and condescending,
Mm.
scapegoating. And scapegoating means that they try to make you believe that what they said, they didn't say what they said to you. You're imagining things. So that's what scapegoating is: undermining, um, withholding affection, love bombing,
Oh.
um, playing the victim to deflect blame, triangulation, bringing other people in to this as well. I think a hard one too is financial control, where they control all of the money. And I think the worst thing that they do is cut you off from your support network, your friends, and your family by telling them that they don't understand you. Uh, they're undermining you. Uh, they don't. They don't understand our relationship. We need to tear ourselves away from this. So we've got to recognize these people. We got to recognize the signs and symptoms of these folks, or otherwise you will never ever get out of it. Um, learning how to, we talked about learning how to love yourself and getting rid of insecurity and low self esteem and low self worth. These are usually the people that toxic people can bring under their wings, and they can bring them under their wings. They can recognize them. They are on a mission and a journey
Oh
to
yes. Oh
bring
yeah.
you into their lives
Into their web. Yes.
and into
Yes.
their web.
Yeah.
You're
And because I
absolutely
like
right.
your cover of your book, and see, look at this is what it looks like, that entanglement. I mean, if you hit it spot on about them drawing you in, like I said, just to kind of you know reiterate, that lack of trust. They're always suspicious,
Mm-hmm.
and the big one, the control and the manipulation, you know just the domination. They use guilt, they use fear, they use pressure to dominate and to control you. The disrespect, just like you say, being able to recognize those signs, so you can say, I'm gonna call it, I'm calling you out. You know this you know when you see, I got my little glasses here, those red flags.
Love it.
When you start seeing these red flags, Beverly, then you can recognize, say, hey, I got to go. And we'll talk a little bit about, a lot of times, because Tina mentioned, there's a way to do it. You have to have a plan, you have to have a strategy, a
Yes.
safe plan and strategy. If you find yourself in a toxic relationship, to the point of, they've, have said that, they will kill you. And so,
Mm-hmm.
just because, again, it's the name calling, they belittle you, you have boundaries, they run all over those boundaries. The emotional, the as well as the physical abuse, that you may feel, you're in a toxic relationship. It's always one-sided, usually their side. And like you say, cutting you off from family and friends, that isolation, you know, uh, uh, you know, taking you away from your support systems. And so all of this, it depletes, it depletes, it hampers your self-worth. And so instead of, you growing and in love, and thriving, you're barely surviving. You're just hanging on. And a lot of times, you feel like, there's that space of being codependent, and that the chronic stress, like talked about, that anxiety and that depression, all of those things, are within you, and it messes with your peace. And so when you think about, we've been talking about, what what is a toxic relationship, some of the signs. Beverly, just from your experience, and from the book, why do you think people stay in toxic relationships, and either for a short time or even years? Why do you think that is, just based on your research?
I think it's multi-factorial. Number one, these particular people, they come in subtle. They come in saying that how much they love you, they want to marry you. They're doing everything. They're laying out the red carpet. And of course, every woman wants to feel loved and wants that red carpet. Everybody wants a relationship like that. So this is how it usually starts. And then it starts to break down, and you start to see a different person. But then they back up, and they go back to being nice and kind and loving and buying you things, bringing you flowers, buying you. They may even go as far as buying you jewelry. And so we fall back into the trap again. Sometimes it's you've been raised with. You can't leave them if you're a Christian. You just have to learn to live with it. You don't have that option. But the Bible has never told us to stay in a toxic relationship. It has never told us that we have to feel deflated all the time, and can't help anybody else because we're so absorbed in what we're going through. God gave us a free mind. He gave us responsibilities. He gave us the keys to happiness, what can be happy on this earth. Because when we learn to trust in Him, when we learn to put Him first, we learn to love others, then we learn to love ourselves. And then we don't tolerate the toxic behavior. But it's a growing process. I know a Christian lady whose husband was a minister, a very toxic man, chopped off one of her fingers. And she stayed, and she believed that she had to stay because she made that commitment. But ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, this toxicity, it doesn't just stay with you. You pass it on for generation after generation after generation. And it affects your children to the point to some of them leave the church. Some of them become drug addicts. Some of them go to prison because they just can't deal with life. So it's a whole lot deeper than just staying there. It's affecting everybody in the family in a negative way. So learn how to stop and pray and ask God to help you so that you can have somewhat of a life that's filled with abundance. There is no abundant life when you're living in a toxic relationship. And I loved what you had. I loved the masks that you showed, Rochelle. Red flags.
Yeah,
Purple. I'm hiding. I'm really not unhappy.
yeah.
So you hide behind a facade
Mm-hmm.
that is nothing, and an inner man is just hurting,
right? Yeah,
and full of pain.
Yeah, and because, like you said, you know, I'm gonna put the one that can stay. You know, because like I say, for me, I thought it was gonna stay. You know, for me, it's, you know, you're sitting in church. I was sitting in church time and time again, day in and day out, just hiding behind my little pretty mask, you know, coming up, dressing it up real nice. But like I say, on the inside, I was in pain. On the inside, I was dying. On the inside, you know, there was that toxicity. And so for me to answer the question of why I stayed in it so long, because it was comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
I had gotten complacent.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I grew up with it. That's all I knew. No one showed me a better way. No one showed me how to love Rochelle. No one, you know, or you know, no one showed me, you know, how to talk to me. You know, now that I'm older, that I'm wiser, 54 years younger, now I know. Now I can spot the red flags. Now and then and not only being able to do it for myself, sharing the same information with my sisters in my group, in my accountability groups, people I come in contact with when I do speaking engagements, even on this podcast, you know, being able to get the message out, showing them what it looks like. You know, they say, you know, you can teach a man what do you can
it said that
eat fish or something.
Yes.
Fish.
You can give a man fish.
Yes.
Or you can teach him how to fish.
Yeah. And so, you know, it's the how that's important, you know, and again, modeling, you know, what that looks like, you know, what it looks like to love. Because, you know, if I remember I was in high school, I think I was in the 10th grade, and I called myself having a boyfriend. He was a football player. You know, everybody want to date a football player. You know, you think you something, you know. And so I'll never forget this, Beverly. We were sitting in my aunt. I was living with my aunt at the time. My mom had passed away, and we were sitting in my aunt's car. He had just come over, and he was like, "Okay, I'm gonna give you my, you know, the Letterman's jacket." He was like, "You know, I'm gonna let you wear this, you know, jacket, yada yada yada." And then he, like you say, you know, you buying gifts and, you know, doing all these things for you, and you know, so for him, you know, it was a privilege for me to be wearing his jacket, and he let me know this, and he was like, "If I see you talking to another, you know, the N word, I'm going." Like you said, they break my neck or something. I politely took off that jacket and gave it on back to him. And shortly after that, he went to jail for robbing somebody or something. So that was a bullet dodged, you know. And so, you know, again, you know, we think this, you know, for young girls, you know, we think this is, you know, some of them, they think it's cute. You know, they think they feel loved because they got this man or this boy showering them with all these gifts, showing them all this attention in public. But when they get behind closed doors, you know, hitting you upside your head and then saying, "I'm sorry and I love you." What that's not love.
Yeah.
And like you said, you know, that's not what God wants for us. And I know a lot of people sometimes struggle with that, you know, with you know, being in a marriage and taking it because, hey, I said my vows, you know, to death do his part. No, that's not it. You know, there's you know, he doesn't want that harm to come to us. And so, that, there are steps and things that you can do, that can keep you safe. And so,
Well, you brought up the word setting boundaries. And setting boundaries is basically drawing a line an imaginary line in the sand and saying, this is no further.
Right.
This is as far as I go, and this is as far as you go.
Right.
But we also have got to learn discipline. We need
Oh, yeah.
to learn how to discipline ourselves to where when the arguments start, that we're not brought into it, that
Right.
we learn how to govern ourselves and say, I'm not going down that road with you.
Right. Right.
And you can come back with some words and say, I don't like it when you treat me like this.
Right.
I don't like it. Let's say if it's your sister, I don't like you wearing my clothes without asking me.
Right.
And I wish you would stop.
Right.
And you can, try to set boundaries with your partners, your family, your friends. And if you can't set boundaries, then it's time to go.
It's time to exit stage left.
Yes.
Oh, I left my little stage thing. Oh, well, maybe next time. Because I have one of them little stage things. But I'm glad you talking about boundaries. And a lot of times people don't realize that they have the authority. They have the power to have those boundaries.
Yes.
And my one of my executive wellness coaches, Dr. Shana, she's the boundary is for you. The rule is for them. And so,
that's right.
Just understanding, like you say, when you don't have those boundaries in place, you're going to find yourself in that season of being in a toxic relationship and not understanding why and how to get out if you don't set those healthy boundaries for yourself. And so a lot, I'm a PE teacher. And so I'm always telling my kiddos, I teach pre-K to pre-K 3 to second grade. So that's about 3 to 8 years old, 7 or 8, somewhere in there. And so a lot of times, and I even, try to model it for us, like, I get real close to them. How do you feel if, that Coach J, because I'm all in your space? And a lot of them, they'll tell me, I feel uncomfortable. And so we have to realize that, that's how we're making others feel when we're crossing that line, when we're stepping over their boundary, of being respectful of each other's personal space. And so, we have that power to say, and I always teach, like, stop. Okay, you are in my space. It's okay that you can tell them stop. You can do it in a nice way too. And so just, having them to respect the boundaries. And so, when we recognize some of those things, Beverly, then the light comes on. Do I have a light? Yeah, I have a light. I need a light bulb. But when the light comes on, it's like, I see myself. I'm in a toxic relationship. This ain't feeling good. And we didn't talk a little bit about this one, but there are, before I go to this question, but there are different types of toxic relationships at home. We've been kind of talking about with yourself and with a spouse or a loved one, or with the significant other, a partner. There's toxic relationships at the workplace. Oh my goodness.
It's getting worse and worse every day.
Worse and worse. And so imagine there was I can't remember his name. It was a comedian, and he talked about when he would go home, it was like going home and there's that toxicity. He called it the nagging wife, and so and so he was like he's sitting in his car and just kind of wait, catch his breath, and before going inside. And so if you find yourself, first of all, when you wake up in the morning, you think you dread going to work, and yeah, like that toxic work at the workplace is real. And I'm thankful that I'm sure that it is in where I work, but I I stay in my little space, and so I haven't, I haven't, knock on wood. I'm sure, I'm sure it will probably come a time, when I might experience it, but so far so good. But anyway, um, if you feel like you're in a toxic, your coworkers, your boss, or whoever you work, they talk to you crazy, they curse you out, they tell lies on you, they try to get you in trouble, get you fired. I mean, then you need to start taking steps of finding other employment, of
Yeah.
making your exit. Yes, if you are in a toxic relationship at work, or even if it's yourself, it's like, okay, something got to give. There needs to be some changes. uh just a little bit about friendships. How does that show up? Have, like, you, well, I know you said about the relational, like with the sister, you gave the example, because I know, growing up, siblings, they take stuff, and don't you just hate it when they don't ask?
Yep. No
And so,
respect.
yeah, that's toxic, because again, it makes you feel some kind of way. There's that control factor, just the lack of respect. And it's like, and making you feel like you're doing something wrong.
Well, don't leave your parents out. There's
Oh,
mothers and fathers who are toxic.
yeah.
And basically, you do what they say. It's their
Oh, yeah.
way
Yeah.
or
Oh,
the
no way.
highway.
And
And
I remember we talked a little bit about that in the book, and so I put it in the chat. Y'all go get her book, Triumphant Over Toxic Relationships, because like I say, it's all types of relationships, and being able to navigate and reclaim, your identity, reclaim your power, of having those boundaries, and being able to say no, and having the authority, reclaiming your voice, reclaiming your peace, through the season. And so, now that we've identified some of these different types of toxic relationships, what do you think, Beverly, should be the first thing that we should do, when we decide, hey, I'm tired of being sick and tired. I'm just tired of this relationship. I'm tired of feeling depleted. I'm tired of having no peace. And so, what should a person do? Something they should do, when they want to leave a toxic relationship.
I think you mentioned it earlier, that you need to come up with a plan of
Mm-hmm.
how to get out of it.
Yeah.
Because sometimes these relationships can become violent if you try to leave.
Right.
And so you need to have enough money to go where you need to go. You need to also. I also want to bring this in before that, and that is, keeping a diary,
Mm.
keeping a diary and writing things down, because we forget when things starts to get a little nice, then we forget all the pain and suffering until it comes again. But if you can go back to that book and remember, oh my God, this is what's coming next. It's not going to change. It's just going to be the same thing over and over again. But you make a plan to get out. If it's a mate, talk to your family and get them involved and let them help you. If it's a friend, basically walk away. If it's on the job, you might want to think about getting another job if it's so bad that there's no changes can be made. I know right now, because there's so much disruption in our country and there's so much hate all around us, people are just gossiping and telling lies and being manipulative, um, to the point to where you start wondering, is this the right place for me? So you have to make some real strong decisions, some real hard decisions if you are ready to move on to the other side. And once you make those decisions, then it's going to be hard. I think you said, Rochelle, why do you not leave? Comfort, change, financial reasons, don't want to disrupt your kids' homes, um, parents and siblings. You have a lifelong relationship with them, and I think that's probably one of the hardest to get out of is family. When you have toxic family members, and you decide, you make that decision. I'm gonna deal with you, but I'm gonna deal with you in a different manner,
Right, right,
and that's hard.
yeah, it
But
is. Especially if you're for the younger people. And I
mm-hmm.
want to kind of read some stats. Among U.S. high school students who had dated in the past 12 months, 8.5% reported physical teen dating violence. 9.7 reported sexual teen dating violence. Overall, about 13.6% of students had experienced any teen dating violence. Nearly 1.5 million high school students nationwide experience physical abuse from a dating partner each year. Among college age women, a notable proportion report being verbally abused by a dating partner. Women aged 16 to 24 are in the age group with the highest rate of intimate partner violence in many studies. And so, when it's young, many teens don't recognize the early abuse, the verbal, the emotional, even digital, social, because the parents are, like you said, it's so normalized. And
Yes,
so it just keeps escalating. It just keeps, just going around and around. And so it's just a repeat of the violence and the toxicity. And so, like you've been talking about, we have to create a safe exit and a support plan, because again, going back to the very beginning, we have to acknowledge the truth. We have to stop
yes,
denying the pain because, freedom, it begins with honesty, being honest with ourselves, putting the spotlight on it. We got to put the magnifying glass on it, girl. And so, if you can't heal what you won't reveal. And so, if when we recognize that what we're experiencing, that's not love, it's control, it's manipulation, it's emotional harm. Remember, the moment we name it, call a thing, we can weaken the power over us. Just like in John 8:32, the truth will set us free when we recognize that. And so just being able to reclaim our identity, through toxic relationships, because they distort who we are. When we go back to our foundations, like I say, mom and dad, but when we go even before that, understanding that we were fearfully, wonderfully created by God in his image. And we know his image is good. And so,
yes,
realizing that we're not broken beyond repair. God chose us and we are loved, we are worthy of all of that. And so it brings us to the escape plan, and journaling. I think that is so important. Thank you for bringing that up, because that also is a part of your plan and your safety exit, because it
mm-hmm.
it can show the authorities, it can show the police and all the other resources that are out there, as you're tracking your journey. You have it on paper, and also the journal piece that helps you with your healing
Correct.
during your season of being in a toxic relationship. And so, because the person, they try to isolate us, they try to pull us away from family, from friends. They want it to, they want to do it their way, they want that control. But we have to know that we must not do this alone. Talk to somebody you trust, your pastor, your preacher, a counselor, a therapist, a friend, a domestic violence advocate, somebody that can help you, you know, in this season to prepare, like you said, spiritually, prepare your mind, your body, your spirit, mentally, and doing it with safety being your top priority. Safety. You know, that's
Yes.
for PMPE. That's my number one rule for us to, you know, for the kids to be safe and careful how they're dealing with each other, how they're playing the game, how they're, you know, interacting, how they're engaging, you know, what they're doing, how they're using the equipment. Safety, and then that wisdom and having the support are the key steps to begin, you know, making that exit plan. And so, you know, when we realize, you know, freedom, you know, it doesn't mean running. It means that we're walking away with strength, in power, with a strategy, and with our self-worth. And so, you know, but before, let me go back. How can, or what have you seen? I know you mentioned a little bit about parents and that relationship of being toxic. But what are some other emotional or mental challenges people face, you know, when they're in a toxic relationship? You know, from your from a standpoint of you being a nurse.
Well, I've seen people that come into the hospital, uh, they're seeking drugs because they're trying to find some peace. Um, they're even sometimes at the point of being suicidal because they don't know how to find peace. They don't know how to get out of those relationships. They don't have the tools that they need. And they don't really want to turn to anybody because some people are too prideful. And that's one thing we've got to really learn how to let go of. And that's that pride.
Yes.
Let that pride go because everybody goes through something. And if you are in a toxic relationship, you need to learn how to open up to other people. And it's not by hiding behind a mask or hiding behind a lie, telling yourself lies every day. It's not hiding behind drugs. It's not hiding behind creating physical pain because the brain is so powerful that the brain can tell the body that, you know, I have a horrendous ache in my body that I can't get rid of when it's really not true. It's all mental. And the mental mind can be your best friend or it can be destruction for you. And by allowing others in to um, set up those destructive boundaries, it just behooves you to say no. I'm not going to allow this to happen. In my book is not only a book to read, it is a guide. It gives you examples. It shows you how, if you're in a toxic relationship, if you are have just left one, or if you're struggling and wanting to go back, you can pick that book up at any chapter, and it will help you. It will help you to learn how to discipline yourself. Um, and then move forward and not look back. Who was that person that said, who was that person in the Bible? Sodom and Gomorrah. Sodom, God told Lot and his wife to leave Sodom and not look back. And they started their journey, and his wife looked back. And when she looked back, God turned her into a pillar of salt.
Mm.
And he did that, I believe, because she couldn't leave the past behind.
Right.
Looking back only reminds you of the past and draws you back to the past. Wipe your hands clean, walk away. Yeah, it's going to be painful. But
Mhm.
just think of yourself being in a relationship that's toxic. It's
Right.
like walking on glass with bare
Mm.
feet, and your feet, bottom of your feet, are getting bloody. And
Yes.
it's painful. And it never heals because you continue to walk on it.
Mhm. Yeah.
Now, if you walk away from that glass in that relationship, of course, it's going to bleed for a little while,
Mhm.
but it will heal. In
Ooh,
time, it will heal.
it will. Oh, I
You
love
have
that.
to
I
make
love
those
that
choices.
analogy. Walking on that
Mhm.
glass. So we've talked about for toxic as we start wrapping up. Truth, the T, truth, the O,
Mhm.
own, truth, face the reality of relationships, without, face the truth. Don't deny it. Own your boundaries, own your self-worth. The X is we've been talking about that exit plan, exit uh, patterns of abuse, of manipulation, of toxic relationships that are controlling you, that are stealing your peace. And then like you say, as you begin to heal, it's not going to be easy, but
Mhm.
we have to invest. That's the I in toxic. We have to invest in our healing, invest in our self-love, invest in our growth, because it has been said. I've heard it said many times, and that was me. Rochelle, ain't nobody coming to save you.
Mhm.
You have to invest in you. I had to invest in me. And so other people that have successfully walked away from toxic relationships, be it with a husband, a partner, a friend, a co-worker, a neighbor, a brother, a sister, a parent, whatever that looked like, and they invested in their own self-love and growth and healing, because we know healing, it's a journey. It's on. Even now for me, I'm still in a space of healing,
Yes. And
of
you will be for a lifetime.
for a lifetime.
Um,
It's a journey. It's a journey.
and those scar it's going to leave scars.
Oh
But
yes.
we can take those scars and use those scars to help somebody else and
Exactly.
help them not to get involved and go down the roads. And this is the purpose of my book, is that
Right.
I can help somebody else not go through the things that I've gone through. I went through it many years, and it has left scars. And I
Mhm.
think back sometime, and I wonder, why did I allow this?
Right.
And it was because how I felt about me.
Right.
I
Right.
felt I was unworthy. I
Hmm.
felt like um, I got what I deserved. Um, these people would come back and we'd have a good time. So I said, "Oh, they've changed." But
Yeah.
you got to remember, they don't change.
Mm.
They
Yeah.
just they just keep dragging you along.
Yeah. And I love in your book, the toll at the back of the book, the toll of toxic relationship extends beyond mental and emotional well-being. It
Mm-hmm.
seeps into every aspect of life,
Yes.
poisoning other relationships and creating isolation. But through
Yeah.
the maze of this darkness, there is a hope, a tiny spark that refuses to be extinguished. Therapy, support groups, and the journey of self discovery offer a way back to oneself, to yourself, where the wounds begin to heal and light slowly replaces the darkness.
Mm-hmm.
Triumphant over toxic relationships is a guide. I always say, our stories can be somebody else's survival guide. And so it's a guide through the web of toxic relationships, offering personal stories and expert advice to navigate the path to recovery. It provides practical strategies and, like you say, actionable steps that you can take right now. And so tips to rebuild that help rebuild your strength. It helps you to set healthy boundaries, and face life challenges with resilience and grace. This book is a beacon of hope, ensuring that those who feel unseen and unheard find understanding and support. It's an invitation to step ahead on the road to healing, empowerment, and self discovery, moving from the shadows. Come on, people, if we want to free ourselves from the shadows of toxic relationships into a life filled with strength, resilience, and emotional growth. And so, as we close tonight, Beverly, the we said the I in toxic was invest, and
Mm-hmm.
the C, come on, say it with me. The C is choose.
Mm-hmm.
Healthy,
Choose.
life-giving connections. Today,
Yes.
it's not just Friday. Today is Tuesday. You have to decide. You have to decide. Whoever is watching this live stream, if you find yourself in a toxic relationship, you get to decide today that I am no longer going to walk down that web of entanglement. I am going to break free. I am going to choose me. I am going to choose peace so I can make sure that I am living in abundance. And so, as we close tonight, Beverly, if there was somebody listening tonight, and they've made that decision to break free from whatever toxic relationship that they find themselves in, what word of encouragement would you give them right in this moment?
The words of encouragement would be, you can do it. You are, God made us strong. He made us resilient. And He made us to, in a wonderful body that can overcome anything with our desire. So I would say there are some who will leave and they will go back. But that's okay. That's okay. We're not perfect. But don't lay there. Get up, stand up, pick yourself up, and try it again. Because at the end of the day, if you stay there, there's so much damage that is being done not only to you, but to others around you.
Mm.
So it's so imperative. It's so pivotal. It's a pivotal moment when you walk away and decide that I'm going to change my life. I will no longer be controlled by someone. I will no longer be manipulated. I will no longer be used as a person who can be controlled. I am going to become my own person by being a child of God and listening to what He has to say.
Yes.
Lightness, the Bible says that light and darkness do not mix.
Cannot exist.
And
Yes.
it cannot exist.
Yes.
So think about those things. Empower yourself to say, I'm better than this.
Yes.
I don't have to stay in this type of a relationship. There are other people out there for you. And if you decide that you never want to get into another relationship, there's nothing wrong with being single.
No.
You can go out and discover a whole lot of things.
Oh,
Look
yes.
at the freedom of being single. Make your own choices. Travel when you want to. Eat when you want to. You don't have to cook for anybody. You don't have to clean up if you don't want to.
All of that sounds wonderful. I tell you, that freedom. That freedom. Because like you say, if I had to just think of one word, it'll be freedom. Because when we're breaking free from that toxic relationship, it's not about walking away. The walking away isn't losing love. It's reclaiming who you are.
You are. Yes.
Which you are love. You are light. It's reclaiming yourself And so that's a word today. That is a word today. And so yes, Tina, she said amen, amen. She loved her freedom. Um, as we close tonight, Beverly, what are you up to, these days, and share with the group, how we can connect with you. I did put in the comments, I put your book link in there. I also put your LinkedIn as well. So how else can what are you going to be up to, and how can we continue to connect with you?
Well, I am always available to do podcasts. I'm also available to do workshops.
Okay.
The one-on-one workshops are just wonderful. Where we can just sit in the room and talk and reflect and deeply think about where we want to go with our lives, both physically and spiritually. And staying in a toxic relationship will hinder you physically, and it will hinder us spiritually, because we can never grow and be the potential of what we want to be. So, by me getting away from all the toxicity, I have learned to be content with just myself. I don't need, you know, relationships to feel valued. God
Mm.
values me, and I
Mm-hmm.
value myself. So some of the things I've done, I've started quilting. I've written books. I'm
Mm-hmm.
still doing nursing. I'm on an assignment right now in Oregon. Um, so I spend time with my grandchildren. My husband and I, we have a very wonderful relationship. It hasn't always been that way. It's been rocky,
Yeah.
but we have managed to turn it around, to turn it into a fine wine and
Yeah.
diamonds.
Yes. Yes.
So
Yes.
I just live a good life.
I love it.
I live a godly life, and I live a life that's not burdened down with a stress and carrying the baggage on my back everywhere that I go that was weighing me down.
Yes. Yes. I love that. Wow. What an incredible and freeing conversation tonight with Amazon best-selling author Beverly Hutchins. She reminded us that no matter how broken or bound we've been in those toxic relationships, that healing is possible and that freedom is within reach. If tonight's episode spoke to your spirit, take a moment to reflect and remember you deserve peace, protection, purpose over your hearts. Be sure to grab Beverly's book, her powerful book, Triumphant Over Toxic Relationships, and stay connected with her journey of restoration and resilience. And as always, thank you, my beloveds, for tuning in tonight for Free Yourself Friday. Free yourself from toxic relationships, where we break chains, we build faith, and we breathe freedom, one story at a time. Until next time, I want you to keep healing, keep growing, and keep freeing yourself, because your best life is waiting on the side of yes. And like I always like to say, when does destiny need an intervention? Right now.
Right
Right
now.
now. Choose. Today is Tuesday. Choose to break free from those toxic relationships. We'll see you next time. Have a wonderful weekend. Tomorrow is Saturday. Make sure you pour into your self-care. Happy Sunday, SON day, as you go and worship God and just thank Him for being able to providing this abundant life of freedom for us all. Until next time, take care and good night.
Good night.